You know, every single big decision, whether it's in business or even in your own career, it really all boils down to one thing. This, calculus of risk and reward. And yeah, we all know we're supposed to balance them, but how do the best leaders actually master it? Well, that's what we're going to break down right now.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with the most fundamental principle there is. I mean, this is the thing that governs pretty much every strategic move you could make. You've definitely heard it before, but trust me, it's the absolute non-negotiable starting point for everything else we're about to talk about.
Simple, right? Super powerful. And yeah, according to our source material, it's 100% true. Look, this is not just some catchy slogan you see on a poster. Think of it more like the non-negotiable price of admission for achieving anything that's actually worthwhile. You want profit, growth, real innovation? Guess what? They all require you to take on some level of risk. You just can't have one without the other. They're two sides of the very same coin.
Okay, so that principle leads us straight to an unavoidable reality. And we're not just talking about those huge, dramatic, bet the company kind of gambles here. Now, risk is a constant. It's woven into our everyday decisions.
And that's the crucial insight, right? Risk is just part of the journey. If you're out there trying to find a path with zero obstacles, well, not only is that impossible, it's a completely losing strategy. The real goal isn't to try and dodge every single challenge. It's to get smarter about how you navigate them, to really understand them, to manage them, and ultimately, to make them work for you.
Which of course leads us to the big question, doesn't it? If risk is basically our constant companion on this journey, how do we become the one in control? You know, how do we master this force instead of just being at its mercy? Well, our source suggests a two-part answer.
And the first part of that answer is all about developing the right mindset, what our source calls the leadership calculus. It's this critical skill that really separates the great leaders from, well, everyone else.
So what is this skill exactly? It's called leadership evaluation. And this is an active process. This is about deliberately, thoughtfully weighing the what-ifs. You know, what's the absolute worst that could happen versus what's the best that could happen? It's a disciplined mental exercise that goes way beyond just a simple gut feeling.
And this slide, it perfectly visualizes that whole mental exercise. It's like having a balance sheet right in your mind. On one side, you've got all the potential negative outcomes. On the other, all the potential positive ones. See, great leaders don't ignore the risks. They stare them right in the face, they name them, and then they weigh them against the rewards.
But that leadership evaluation, that mindset, that's just the first step. To really truly get an edge, you have to move past intuition and start using a systematic approach. If evaluation is the mindset, this next part, this is the tool.
And the objective of using this tool is crystal clear. It's not just about understanding the balance between risk and reward. It's about actively changing it. The whole point is to shrink the downside and totally amplify the upside.
So, how do you actually do that? Well, here's this really powerful three-step technique. Let's use a quick example, say launching a new product. So step one, you identify. What are the risks? Maybe supply chain delays, maybe low customer demand. And the rewards, capturing new market share, boosting profits, right? Next, you analyze. What's the real probability of that supply chain delay? What's the potential profit if we hit our sales targets? And then, here's the game changer. Step three, you strategize. You actively think, okay, how can I reduce that supply chain risk? Maybe I should get a backup supplier. How can I increase the reward? Maybe a really targeted pre-launch ad campaign. See, this is where you actually take control.
And when you put those two things together, that leadership evaluation mindset and a systematic technique like the one we just looked at, you can achieve something pretty remarkable. You can literally tip the scales in your favor. This just brilliantly illustrates the power of that process. So on the left, you've got an unanalyzed opportunity. Let's be honest, it's a gamble. The risk is high, the reward is just a big question mark. But now look at the right. After you've applied some analysis, you haven't totally eliminated the risk, but you've minimized it, and you've maximized the potential reward. You've literally transformed a blind leap of faith into a calculated strategic move.
All right, so let's wrap this up with the key things you need to remember. First off, risk is a constant, so don't try to avoid it. Learn to manage it. Second, strong leadership means actively, deliberately weighing that risk/reward balance. And finally, and this is the big one, a systematic analysis technique doesn't just help you weigh the scales, it helps you tip them in your favor.
And that leaves us with one final question for you to really think about. Now that you have this framework for analysis, what's that one calculated risk that's sitting right there in front of you, in your career, in your business, that you haven't taken, but maybe, just maybe, you should?